In this section, we will talk about how Russia's Wagner private army backed by Russian troops claimed to have seized the city of Bakhmut, but Ukraine said it still controlled a small part of it and was preparing for a major counteroffensive. Bakhmut is a strategic city in eastern Ukraine that has been the scene of fierce fighting between Ukrainian forces and Russian-backed separatists since the city lies on a highway that connects the separatist-held regions of Donetsk and Luhansk with Russia. On May 20, 2023, the head of the Wagner private army, Yevgeny Prigozhin, announced that his forces had captured Bakhmut after a long and bloody battle. He said that more than 20,000 of his troops had died in the fight, half of them being Russian convicts recruited for the war. He also claimed that his forces had killed thousands of Ukrainian soldiers and civilians. Prigozhin is a close ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin and a former convict himself. He is accused of running a network of mercenaries, hackers, trolls, and assassins that carry out covert operations for the Kremlin around the world. He is also under U.S. sanctions for his alleged role in interfering in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. The Russian Defense Ministry confirmed Prigozhin's claim and said that Wagner forces, with the support of Russian troops, had seized Bakhmut. The ministry said that the operation was part of Russia's goal of demilitarizing Ukraine and preventing it from joining NATO. However, Ukraine denied that Bakhmut had fallen to the enemy and said that it still controlled a small part of the city. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry said that its forces had repelled several attacks by Wagner and Russian troops and inflicted heavy losses on them. The ministry also said that it was preparing for a major counteroffensive to liberate Bakhmut and other occupied territories. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned Russia's aggression and called for international support. He said that Ukraine would not give up its sovereignty and territorial integrity and would fight for its freedom and democracy. He also urged NATO to grant Ukraine membership as soon as possible to deter further Russian expansionism. The U.S. and its allies expressed solidarity with Ukraine and denounced Russia's violation of international law. They said that they would increase their military and economic assistance to Kiev and impose more sanctions on Moscow. They also warned Russia of serious consequences if it continued its offensive or used nuclear weapons. The situation in Bakhmut remains tense and uncertain. The fate of the city could determine the outcome of the war and the future of Europe. The battle for Bakhmut was not only a military struggle, but also a symbolic one. For many Ukrainians, the city represented their determination to resist Russian aggression and defend their sovereignty. But for Russia, Bakhmut was a strategic prize that would allow them to advance deeper into the Donbass region and isolate other Ukrainian strongholds. The fight for Bakhmut lasted for months, with both sides exchanging artillery fire and launching attacks on nearby towns and villages. The city was reduced to rubble, and many of its residents fled or suffered casualties. The Ukrainian forces faced a formidable enemy, with Russian regular troops, mercenaries, and air strikes. But they also received support from their Western allies, who supplied them with advanced weapons and humanitarian aid. In May 2023, Russia declared victory in Bakhmut after its forces captured most of the city. But Ukraine disputed this claim, saying that it still controlled some parts of the city and the surrounding heights. Ukraine also said that it was preparing for a counteroffensive to retake the lost territory. Meanwhile, some Ukrainians who were fighting outside Bakhmut reported seeing Russian mercenaries withdrawing from the city. This suggested that Russia was facing a loss of morale and resources after its costly assault. The mercenaries were replaced by Russian regular troops, who were expected to face a renewed Ukrainian resistance. The fate of Bakhmut was still uncertain, but it had become a symbol of the war in Ukraine. A war that had claimed thousands of lives and displaced millions of people. A war that had tested the resilience of a nation and the solidarity of its allies. A war that had not yet ended,